I'm excited to be back here. I'm excited to be back in Philadelphia. I've done my second stint now in Silicon Valley. So the first time I moved out there in 1997, 98, I was working down the street in Newtown Square. They had just opened this amazing office for me, corner office at SAP. And I just unpacked my boxes. I packed them back up and moved out to California to start up this business-to-business procurement thing, e-commerce called Ariba. I was there for almost 15 plus years. Made it back to Philadelphia and spent some time down the road at a company in Exton, and then got a call in, I guess, November, right around this time last year, from my old boss at Replan. He says, "Hey, I want you to come out and check out this company, Anaplan." I'm like, "Anaplan? Never heard of them." "Oh, they're one of these unicorns, aka overvalued Silicon Valley company that really needs some leadership on the front end of the business." I said, "Okay." So I interviewed with our CEO, Fred, a great guy from France, and about 2 months after, I pack up my family, I moved to California, they fire him, and now I'm sitting there saying, "Nicole, maybe you shouldn't move the kids out." And so it's been a pretty interesting year, and my knowledge of analytics, I must admit, back in November last year when I started looking at this, the only experience I had was with iPipeline. We were talking with Deloitte and had a pretty interesting use case, and I was telling Joyce about it, where if you think about life insurance and you go to apply for life insurance today, pretty much you have to go through this battery of tests. You have to give blood and urine, and it's a 45 to 90-day process to get approved. And if you think about it, it lends itself to predictive analytics, where think of the data, right? So we could get data from your doctors. Of course, you sign away. We look at your credit card bills, and we see, what you're eating, what you're, buying. You can determine what your credit is, all these things. What magazines do you go to a gym? And it can predict whether or not you're underwriting risk, if somebody they want to approve for insurance. So you would think, wow, this is amazing. We can replace literally thousands of people that are doing this job, do it more accurately. Of the 10 million applications in America that people fill out, how many do you think go through this amazing predictive process? Less than 1,000. It's ridiculous, right? So you would think, oh my gosh, here's this amazing application for predictive analytics, and it's just companies won't adopt it. And I asked some of these senior executives at AXA and Nationwide, Mass Mutual, why isn't this taken off? Because it just makes so much sense to me. Well, you don't want to get mortality wrong, and if you do that, we're out of business. But the reality is, the average age of some of these senior executives in these companies is like my age, right? And they're not technology, savvy, and they just don't want to take the risks of doing something wrong around, analytics. But it's coming. It's like the weather forecast for analytics and the big data and the data that we have, it's going to be used for all these different things. And it is already. So if you think about, I'm sure you all know the company Salesforce, right? Mark Benioff, who invented the cloud, right? If he didn't invent it, I think he perfected it, or he takes credit for it. So he's building this giant tower in San Francisco, and I was able to go to their user conference a couple weeks back, and it was all about Einstein. So do you know who Einstein is? It's this little guy that's a cartoon at the Salesforce conference that now is embedded into everything they do. It's their predictive analytics platform. They've been acqui-hiring literally thousands of data scientists through companies, and whoever Google and Facebook don't get, Salesforce is getting. So if you think about the supply and demand right now in the market for data analysts, data scientists, whatever you want to call it, it's off the charts, ridiculous as far as the demand for that. And the reason being, all these technologies are being built up, right, by all these companies, whether it's big data or reporting or planning, modeling, anything. And the predictive, the machine learning is just so prevalent. The money being invested in Silicon Valley into these kinds of companies is unprecedented. Why? Because we know there's applications for it. But what's the challenge, right? Why isn't it like off the charts adoption? Now, if you've been on Amazon, they know everything about you, right? So they know what you bought, what you want to buy. They know if you're pregnant before your husband does. I mean, it's just like, they know what the baby's gender is. How do they do it? I have no idea. Well, they do it through, obviously, the predictive stuff. So there's a lot of things on the customer experience side that predictive has been used for, machine learning has been used for. But why hasn't it become so prevalent, across the enterprise or across, large global companies? And I think that's really what that's the tipping point, right? When is that going to happen, right? And hopefully for you guys, it's going to start happening soon, because the job market will be amazing if you have that kind of skill set and you get out there and you have these tools or capabilities that you learn here and you go apply them in the business world. There's going to be such a supply and demand unequal balance that some of these engineers and data scientists, the job market is so bad. Now, this is in San Francisco, so even though you're paid ridiculous amounts of money, it's a very different, cost of living than Pennsylvania. So just think of Pennsylvania, 3% tax, 13% tax. So right then and there, it's a big difference. And then, beautiful home here, walking distance from the campus and the Villanova main line, probably a place like yours, Mike, that's a $2 or $3 million home here, is $15 million. So that's the difference, unfortunately. But that's where the supply and demand is right now. So those companies, like Anaplan and others that are trying to find this kind of skill set, if you have an interest in moving to California, you'll have a job. There's no doubt about it. Right? All right, so I have a couple things just to give you an idea who we are. How do I do this? Just, yeah. What am I? This is a Dell. Okay. Do I have to? All right, where's my technical guy? Okay, no, page down. That usually works, right? Yeah. Page up, page down. Okay. Got it. Good. No, it's okay. Well, you know what? Yeah, it'll work. Could I do that? Yes. Okay. Good. Forward, back. Nice. All right. So think of predictive. All these analytical tools. We want businesses to be smart, right? So the problem is a lot of these companies, they think they're smart, but then when you go start to look at data and all the things that they do, they're really not as smart as they are. And they have to worry now because things are moving so fast, right? The difference between my first visit to California in 1998 and my visit now is the speed of which business is working, right? Who wants to be the next company to be Ubered or Amazoned or Netflixed or whatever? And these things are just happening rapidly. When the CEO of GE, Jeff Emlett, says, if we don't rapidly transform the way we operate, we are going to be irrelevant. Now, this is a Fortune company that's been around since, the 1800s. So this is, it's the Thomas Edison days, right? I mean, so this is unprecedented in how fast these companies have to move, right? And so think about if you're driving a car at fast speed and all your systems do is have you look in the rearview mirror. Yeah, that brick wall is not going to feel too good when you hit it, right? You better have a big airbag. And you think about these companies, and I'll explain the business problem in a second, but productivity has been a big challenge, right? We've been talking about productivity, whether it's on a shop floor, in the office, wherever. But what happens, right? CVS just laid off, 1,800 people or something. It was in the news yesterday. What were those 1,800 people doing on Wednesday? Were they not productive? Were they not needed? And all of a sudden they're gone. So either A, they weren't doing anything anyway, or B, somebody's got to do the job and the work of those 1,800 people that are not going to be there on Monday, right? So productivity is so important. So what happens if you're moving fast, you have to be productive, and data is spread everywhere, right? So it's great to have predictive analytics if you have good data, but what if your accuracy of your data is not good? Then you're probably predicting something that's not going to happen, right? So it's important to have very accurate data. You think about universities or businesses, everything in our world today is siloed. You have the finance department, the accounting department, the treasury department, the marketing department. Sometimes they like each other, right? Sometimes maybe they don't, big companies. And very rarely do they work together. So, if you think about how business needs to run today at that fast pace, it has to be connected. And it's not. The disparate systems it makes the data so spread out. It's just hard to be connected and have a connected operation, and especially the larger companies, it's really hard. Another thing that's important is the businesses, and this is why everybody knows what cloud computing is, I'm sure by now, hopefully. But the reason cloud computing has become so popular is because the businesses have been frustrated with their IT organizations because they are not responsive, right? We need to move fast, we need to be connected, and what are the systems in IT? They're slow, they're disconnected, they're expensive, all the opposite things. Right? So the businesses want to control and own. So what do? They go run out and say, I'm not waiting for IT. Let me go run out and buy this cool little SaaS system that I could put in for relatively cheap. I could sign it on my own budget, and which is great until you have 500 of them now in a Fortune company. They don't talk to each other, and the data is all spread out. So you wind up with that problem. And then, of course, they're point solutions, so it's not scalable. So that's kind of the problem that's facing a lot of these companies today. What's that? Oh, I have to turn, yeah, you would think I'd be technical, but turning stuff on is amazing, the results that you get, right? So think about how companies plan today, right? Everything, oh, it's up and to the right, and they plan in these silos, right? And that all looks good, but then the reality of their plans are they're really a series of literally thousands of different plans in a Fortune company, right? And things are always changing, right? So there's this big disconnect between what people think are happening at the, say, strategic or global level of a company, and then what really happens in the day-to-day operations. So how are decisions made in Fortune companies today? How do you get the people on the same page if A, they don't work together, B, they don't like each other, they're siloed, it's hard, right? And then, if there's an opportunity or you have something that you want to go get done, the snapshots of the data that you have, it's probably not accurate, it's not real time. So what do? You send these millions of people out. And I ask CFOs of these Fortune companies, you know what they say? I say, look, you got your people working weekends. We don't care. As long as I get the information I need, I don't care what they're doing. I pay them. That's unfortunate, right? I mean, so the executives typically don't care that thousands of people are doing all this work to get stuff done until they have to release 15 hover them like CVS, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, who's going to do this work, right? So it takes days, weeks, months sometimes to get information back. All at the same time where you have to start to make decisions, right? So what happens now? I mean, if you don't do that, you're going to wind up, either getting Ubered or Amazon or whatever. So having everybody looking at the same data, looking across the enterprise, asking these real-time questions, what if, and then being able to respond fast in a connected way. That's the way the world needs to be today. And this is what the power of analytic systems and data and the technologies that are available today give executives and people that are managing businesses on a day-to-day basis. I mean, if you're trying to move fast, having an hour versus 2 or 3 weeks, a lot of things can change, right? So a Harvard Business Review survey was done. 75% of the executives feel they need, to plan more frequently. So, right, the days of doing a budget at the beginning of the year, and then, you do 5 months, you do your budget January, and then, we'll go start this thing, in the summer. I mean, flexible budgets, zero-based budgeting, all these things are changing so rapidly now, you always have to continue to replan, right? 85% think it's really important to replan. 5% think they're good at it. That's a problem. Why? Well, think about it today. Us customers, and we're a consumer-driven economy, I mean, how many choices do we have? Everything's so fickle, right? So the consumer front ends of these businesses, the demand, it's just so all over the map now. So you can't gauge this stuff. I mean, it's really hard to do it anyway. And then who's your competitor, right? I mean, go ask Starwood or go ask Marriott who their biggest competitor is. Do you think they're competing against each other? Or is it Airbnb? Or is it HomeAway or whatever, right? Ask the poor taxi companies, limo companies, who they thought their competitor was, right? As they're now out of business, right? Go ask Comcast who their competitor is. Maybe Netflix, maybe somebody else, right? So, you don't know who your competitors are today. The competitive landscape changes dramatically, right? And that speed. And then the ability to, model and plan and introducing new products. And a lot of these Fortune companies, they're all about, acquiring, because that's how they have to grow. And to be able to try to do all that planning in the traditional way is impossible. This is what I had, after 30 years of selling enterprise software, I had no clue how these companies operated at this level, right? So I thought, because I worked at SAP, the Germans, they just brainwashed me. And I just thought this ERP thing was this whole screen. And it was SAP, and the world revolved around SAP or Oracle or IBM or the enterprise systems. But the reality is, you go into companies like Unilever or Diageo or any of these, Kimberly, they have 1,000 different ERP systems. Now, they may have SAP, and they get one invoice at the end of the year from Waldorf, but they have 15 versions of SAP. And then in those versions, through acquisition or whatever, there's all different metadata that is, nothing is consistent. Or maybe they have $1 billion project to try to make consistent data across the enterprise. So this is the way Fortune companies are running today. They have their HR systems, their other types of systems. So over the years, and this is what got me really excited, we came out with these planning systems, right? So these planning systems were built by IBM, Oracle, and SAP, but not really, because they bought those companies, and they bought companies like Oracle bought Hyperion, SAP bought Business Objects and 2 or 3 other companies, and I think IBM had bought Cognos, and prior to that it was TM1. So you had these legacy systems, and the reason the guy who founded this thing, he found Michael Gould, he wrote a product called the Datum that was bought by Cognos, then bought by IBM. So he went to IBM back in like 2009 and said, hey, you know, I think I could rewrite this thing in the cloud, in memory, all these new ways of doing it. Of course, what does IBM say? Well, you know what, why don't we just put a new veneer and user interface on the 25-year-old software, right? We all know what that is, right? Which is great because they did that. And then SAP was buying Ariba and all these other companies, so they didn't reinvest in business objects. And Oracle never invested in anybody they buy. So Hyperion's 25-year-old software. So here these poor companies have this 25-plus-year-old performance management, data analytics type software, but how does the world run today? What's the #1 largest planning platform in the world? Guess. It's all over the chart. Come on, guys, wake up. Yeah, all right, yeah, there you go. Okay, cut that one. Let's do that again. Wait, no, the camera guy's back there. It's Excel, right? I honestly really didn't understand this, but think about it, right? There's thousands and thousands of shadow IT and shadow finance people running around in these global companies doing Excel. It's amazing. It's not tied together. It's not integrated. You know, anybody ever get a thing version 700 of the Excel spreadsheet? And then think about Cisco, who has 32,000 sales reps, 8 levels of commission calculations. They were trying to do this with Excel. They had 1 billion rows in their spreadsheet, billion cells or whatever, a billion cells. It would take 4 hours for the spreadsheet to load. And then after 4 hours, it would say, broke. Right? That's how we're running Fortune companies today. No wonder why they're a mess. Right? This is a big problem. This is, and it's amazing that this is going on with the billions and billions of dollars that have been spent by these Fortune companies on, you know, enterprise systems, transaction systems, all kind of systems. So the good news is, you know, this is why I joined Anaplan, because I didn't realize this business problem exists, and the need today to have data and analytics and all these things that, you know, are going to help companies run faster and smoother and all that are needed. Okay, so what is this costing companies, right? So Gartner and a few others came and looked at this problem, and obviously the opportunity cost, because you miss opportunities, right? Productivity. You have all these people who say they're data scientists, say they're planners, they're doing spreadsheet work, manual spreadsheet activity. They're not doing analytics. They're doing manual activity, pushing spreadsheets around, trying to pull all this stuff together for reporting. Risks. I mean, accuracy. Right? I think it was Goldman Sachs had bought a company. There was an error in a spreadsheet, cost them $100 million. Error in a spreadsheet, $100 million error. That's a great article. We use that all the time. So this is a ridiculous tax on corporate America, and that's just in Global 2000. So just some examples by putting these kind of technologies like Anaplan and others in. 2 weeks to 2 days, the planning cycle. I was actually in the Philippines with the CFO of Del Monte, and you know, Del Monte, they grow pineapples. It's not a really complex business, but you know, it took all this time to plan the fields and where to plant and things like that. Minutes, you know, instead of days, and you know, just the ability to have big impacts on the business. And I got a couple customers that speak, which make it sound better. We paid those people a lot of money, by the way. So what makes it different, right, than spreadsheets, right? Because people say, well, what do we do? Well, it's kind of like spreadsheets on steroids or connected spreadsheets. But it's different because most of those planning platforms that were built 25, 30 years ago were built primarily to support the financial functions and financial reporting of the companies. The problem is, think about a Fortune company. Planning happens everywhere. That's why you have all those spreadsheets, right? It's not just in finance, right? So as a sales guy, I do territory and quota planning. That's the most important thing I do, right? Assigning the quotas, assigning the territories, making sure that they are aligned and it's fair. We have to obviously pay salespeople, so there's all this incentive compensation. That's all done, for the most part, either with legacy systems or really it's just all spreadsheets. So a lot of the first customers of Anaplan, we built it thinking all these guys would buy finance, and they all said, oh, we have a real problem, like Cisco and HP and VMware and a lot of the big technology companies have large sales forces. They were doing all this stuff on spreadsheets. I mean, HP was paying 30 some odd thousand reps or whatever, it was 40,000 reps. They didn't get their quotas out until 4 months into the year. So if you're a sales rep and you take 4 months before you figure out, A, what you're getting paid on. I don't know if you took 4 months off, but I mean, you probably aren't as productive as you would be if you knew the first of the year, first of your sales year, what your territory was, what products you were allowed to sell, and how much you were going to get paid. So I mean, just thinking of productivity enhancements that they now get that stuff out. October 31st was their year end. They'll be getting quota letters out next week. So huge difference, big impact. Supply chain is probably the most interesting thing that I've seen with this is that, you know, you think about the shop floors of today, all the robotics and all the automation, and yet they're all managed with 25 or 30-year-old technologies or, you know, on spreadsheets, right? And if you've ever been on a shop floor, the profile of folks that are on that shop floor, it's not the most technology-savvy group of folks, and yet they're running the supply chains, you know, with this old technology. So I think having it connected from the sales forecast through the costing, through the finance, onto the shop floor, you know, that demand and supply planning. So companies like Unilever and others are doing very sophisticated supply planning with predictive capabilities, optimization. You know, so there's a real use for these kinds of skills that you guys are learning and being put in practice at places. Not to forget marketing, but if you think about consumer companies like Unilever or Procter & Gamble or others that are using this for trade promotions, it's the largest spend category is marketing in a CPG company, right? It doesn't cost a lot to make soap or detergent or toothpaste, but it costs a lot to market it, right? And so that's where all the money goes. So having this, you know, kind of thing all connected and tied, and then having business people own it, not having to worry about IT folks to do it. So the end users or folks like yourself can go in and model build, get the data, you know, because it's one data set, as the gentleman from Motorola said, you know, once that data's sitting in there, anyone can model on it, right? You change hierarchies. What if, oh, the Brexit happens. Now all of a sudden the UK is not part of Central Europe. How do you change? It's amazing the kind of ripple effect those kinds of changes have on systems today, okay? And then, you know, it's got to be scalable, right? So I told you about that, I think it was the Cisco and HP model where they had the 1 billion cells, right? You know, it's great that Excel works that way, but it does run out of gas after a certain number of, and it wasn't really meant to do all this stuff, right? Excel was supposed to be, you know, kind of a cool modeling tool, and it's become, you know, unfortunately in a lot of these Fortune companies, way too dependent on something that really wasn't meant to do that. So these companies are using this stuff. It's really cool. We're in the very early stages of it. I think not only the company, but the space is really in, you know, the first inning, you know, of a 9-inning game or an extra inning game. It's really early on as to what is happening in analytics and the space. So what I want to do is, if I can, how do I do this one now? I don't think I've ever used a Dell. It's been a while. Here we go. This is, I'm going to do this at a faster speed. Is it going? Yeah, it should be going. All right. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, no, it's fine. I'll just talk through. I just want to give you an idea of how the technology works, right? So these are different models, right? So sales forecasting, your workforce planning optimization, sales forecasting, revenue planning, all these kind of capabilities that you know, you can go in and model. So different departments around the company would then build these models. And by the way, it's very similar to Excel in a lot of ways. So if you're going in and you know Excel or you've been trained in Excel, that, you know, the formulas are very simple. So, you know, a lot of that programming language, if you know Excel, you can do it this, as opposed to, I know Excel, but I got to go to my IT guy who's going to take, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to figure out how to get some of this stuff done, right? So let me see if, I'm just trying to think. Can I speed it up here? How was I able to? Unfortunately, I didn't have proper internet access on my computer, so I recorded it just in case. Why isn't this? Is it running faster though? It doesn't run? Okay. All right, I tried. It's gonna, okay, maybe I did make it through. Oh, there it is, I got it. I got it. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. It's working a lot slower. Where if I'm able to hit the keys, I could go boom, boom, boom. It was like 3 or 4 minutes. But I record it, take a little longer. Okay. Anyway, so what I was going to show, and it'll show in the background, I'll open it up for questions because I want to make sure we get you to happy hour, by whatever, it's this Friday, right? You're here on a Friday afternoon. This is impressive. Yeah, I was never here on a Friday afternoon. That's for sure. So, what it'll show is you start out with a high-level plan. So integrated business planning is a term that's been around for a long time. But think about that same set of data starting at a strategic plan, moving it down to a sales plan, driving it down into the regions. And so it's a top-down, bottom-up capability where you really can't do that with the current technology, a lot of the current technology is out there. So either it's top-down or bottom-up. They don't talk to each other. There's a lack of collaboration with spreadsheets because everybody's got the spreadsheet sitting on their own desktop. So that's really the key difference is the ability to plan across divisions of the company and bring these folks together. If you look at technologies, has anyone heard of Slack? Right? Yeah, they're probably going to get an $8 billion valuation, right? So this is like, these companies don't talk to each other, as we mentioned. So there's products like Slack that are a collaboration platform where you can, go across departments, share data, share video. So, it's how do we communicate better as organizations today with all this disparate and, separate data sets. And so that's really been part of the challenge that companies have is they're just running with all these different technology sets and the legacy systems. Almost 80% of the chief information officer's budget is spent on January 1st. So you know what that means? Basically, they only have 20% of their budget to go out and spend on new stuff, innovative stuff. Everything is, in essence, just maintenance, operations, support that keeps the existing lights on, okay? So it becomes part of a challenge. And here's another, like as it goes, to give you an idea, if I'm going to work on Salesforce optimization, it'll now activate that model, go into that database, do the predictions, bring that information back on a real-time basis. So everyone knows what in-memory means, right? Got tech folks here, right? Yeah, right. So a lot of the systems now, has anyone heard of HANA? That's the big thing. SAP's invested billions of dollars in HANA and the database. The reason why in-memory is so cool is that it brings all this stuff into the memory and you can do everything in a real-time basis, as opposed to do it, send it off to somebody, gets calculation, comes back hours, weeks, days later, as opposed to your real-time accessing that data. And that's a big part. And that's what the cloud gives you, the ability to get at that data in a real-time basis, change that data on the fly. Hey, I want to change this driver. Let me look at it, instead of as a percentage of sales on a unit margin basis. How does that ripple and impact, across the enterprise? Companies just can't do this today. Or they do with those thousands of people that the CFO sends out to go do it on thousands of spreadsheets. So this is the big titanic shift, I think, that's happening with data and analytics. Data is a mess right now in these companies. They've spent billions of dollars to try to coordinate and get that data. And then once they have good, clean data, they're now able to use some of these tools and technologies, to better plan and model and predict on how their business is going to run. So I'm sorry I couldn't give you a better demo because it really is pretty cool, but, that's fine. I tried. It was a technology issue here. So I got about 15 minutes, I wanted to leave for questions about anything, right? Is there folks outside just the analytics center here? Or is it all data folks?
No, it's mostly business undergrads.
Okay. All right. So you can ask anything. Yes?
I'm not from Nova. I'm a business guy, marketing strategy.
Okay, good.
Lincoln Financial.
Oh, great. Mm-hmm.
Live through everything you're talking about. We operate in spreadsheets because we have lots of disparate systems.
Mm-hmm.
Are you under the hood here? Are you essentially data integration, and then a middle layer or top layer that lets you build up the
Yeah,
models?
good question, because there's a lot of confusion. Like when people first saw what we were doing, they said, "Oh, you're just like Tableau or Click." Or a reporting tool. And by the way, they're all customers of Anaplan, right? So Tableau uses, Click uses. It's the underlying data modeling and then the planning that really is the engine that is unique to Anaplan. The reporting could be Tableau, it could be this is our user interface, it's not really pretty, but you can dump that to a more sophisticated reporting type of tool. As far as the data gathering, there's a number of different ways. We use third-party tools that can suck the data, or you could just get flat files. Amazingly, a lot of this data is coming from spreadsheets. Because it's done in spreadsheets now. The data, there isn't one centralized data source in a lot of these companies. They say there is, but there isn't. So the hard part is getting access to that data. The beauty is, once you get that data from the disparate systems out of the spreadsheets and into one platform, that's really where the power of something like this is.
Yeah, because we have AS3 data operational systems on AS300s on Oracle, because we acquired lots of companies.
Right.
All
Yep.
So you build the data model, then you've got tools to pull the data
Yep.
into your store using that
Yep.
model, and then
Yep.
either your tool or others.
Yeah, and so knowing Lincoln and insurance, why a lot of the insurance guys like us is, one, their financial data is all over the place because they typically have acquired lots of companies. And by the way, you think legacy is a term in normal businesses. In insurance, legacy is really legacy. I mean, some of the policy admin systems are really, old.
AS300.
Yeah. So I mean, this is like none of these kids understand that at all.
That's what they used to call Big Iron, IBM. I didn't know about them until I got into the industry.
Yeah. So I mean, and they're assembler or COBOL or whatever language that none of you guys have any idea about. But yeah, so it's even harder. The older the technology systems you have to get data from, some of them you just can't even get data from. It's impossible. So, good question. Question?
How do you
Yes.
overcome privacy issue?
Great question. And that's really, the question was about privacy. And, depending on the privacy, obviously at a company like Lincoln, you have HIPAA data, which is a problem, right? Because that's big money if you lose that.
Financial information.
Yeah, and financial data. So obviously when you have any kind of cloud-based solution, there's a data issue, especially if you go outside the US, because then there's the Patriot Act that, companies outside the US don't want to put data into a US-based cloud because they think we could just go and either A, tell them they can't get the data, or they could have access to it. So that's kind of the thing I think has slowed adoption of these kinds of technologies down, because think about it, the incumbents who are not cloud-based, the big four or whatever, IBM, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, et cetera, they are not rushing to the cloud. Their advertisements are, but they've got huge revenue streams that are not in the cloud. So there's a big push, oh, hey, security, hey, put it behind your firewall. The reality is a lot of the data breaches you heard from Target and all these big data breaches, they weren't cloud-based data breaches. They were behind the company's firewall, right? So the reality is privacy and security, it's a pretty good chance that if you got to be SOC 1, SOC 2 compliant in a cloud-based environment, and whether you're running on Amazon's AWS, which is a $12 billion business now, that Amazon's going into the business, basically renting out their cloud infrastructure, IBM, Oracle's cloud, all these cloud, they're pretty secure, but the biggest question is, if there is a breach, obviously it's a big issue, and you have data that's sitting in here that is, obviously very sensitive. But I'll give you a great example. Morgan Stanley put us through 6 months of InfoSec and all these reviews because we were going to have their top employees' incentive compensation and bonus calculations, right? Because they were doing it on spreadsheets. So I asked them, I said, okay, this is great. I'm, kind of curious. What is it that you do now? What's the current process? Of course, they're passing thumb drives around with the executive's compensation on it. And I said, well, these seem so secure. He says, well, listen, I'm not condoning the current process. I just want to know about your security. But it's interesting how this stuff is done today versus in a more secure cloud environment. But that is one of the challenges. People are afraid, with all this data now that, hey, is it secure? And obviously if it gets out there, you only hear about the big breaches. And when you do, look, the CIO of Target and the CEO of Target got fired. They lost their jobs because of the data breach. So it's serious stuff. Good question. Yes?
This is completely different. Can you talk about your career path since graduating that helped enable you to achieve a CEO position?
Yeah, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, right? The question is on the career path. You know, I was telling Joyce, I came to Villanova, I wanted to be a lawyer, right? I don't know why. I worked in Center City, Philadelphia for a law firm, you know, to pay my way through high school, and came here and, you know, got a marketing degree and, you know, took a bunch of accounting classes and had no idea. Senior year, I said, you know, I don't want to go 3 more years of law school. I got to go get a job. And ADP hired me to go sell payrolls in North Philly, which was fun. You know, I went through 2 T-tops, sets of T-tops for my Camaro. But great experience, and then got into sales. And, you know, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, as I said. So this company from Germany decides to set up by the airport in Philadelphia called SAP. I mean, nobody knew who they were. Nobody. And so I got a job there, and was one of the first employees in America. And then the thing just took off amazingly. So here I was, 30-something years old, you know, rose up the ranks there and was running a $1 billion company with absolutely zero credibility or qualification to do so. So you talk about the Peter or Paul principle, that was definitely it. So, you know, but, you know, I always say, you know, you make your own luck, right? And so I think Villanova prepared me to be in that situation where the fact that I had that opportunity, which was luck, total luck, that I took advantage of. And then parlayed that and took a risk, right? I mean, I had this great job at SAP, corner office, just unpacking the boxes, as I said, making a lot of money in my hometown. Hey, let me pack up and move to California where, you know, I'm not rich anymore, right? I mean, you could be rich in Philadelphia, you go to California, you're not rich. It's a completely different level there, way, way more expensive. I was talking about, you know, Mike's house pricing and how different it is out there. I think you thought about going out there at one time. It was very expensive. And took a big risk and went to a company that had no revenue. It was an idea to how to change procurement. I took an amazing pay cut and rolled the dice in equity. And that was 15 years ago. And then it was it was a good one. So, I mean, it put me in that position. And, you know, I think the thing I like about Villanova that's different than other schools, and we talked about this, is it gives you just a broader view of life. And it prepares you if those situations happen. That, not to say that other schools aren't good schools, but I just think that the diverse education that you get here, the culture that we have here at this school, it's just different. I don't know what it is, I can't explain it, but it's a different place. And I think it just prepares you better for life, prepares you for business. And when you're in those situations, you got to make the right decisions at the right time, and a lot of it is luck. But you know, I think it's just, you know, that you're learning, always learning. You're always you know, being prepared. And if you're prepared and you're in the right place at the right time, you get that situation. And it worked out great for me, and you know, I couldn't be happier. So, but a lot of it is because of what I learned here back from '79 to '83. So the education you're getting now, invaluable, really.
Hey, Paul, what's it like to hire people now? Say you were to hire someone from Villanova, how would that work within the company? What would the pay range be?
Yeah, you know, hiring, you know, and it's all geographic now, right? As I was kind of explaining, the supply and demand out in California is just so ridiculous for this kind of talent, right? And of course, I told my daughter, who just graduated University of Georgia 2 years ago, go math, science, analytics, all these like things that she does journalism, which is being disrupted. I mean, think about that, right? I mean, talk about an industry that's already been disrupted, and you know, what newspapers are making money today? None. So that's probably would not recommend. But being in this kind of a field, you know, having that right skill set, and I think also being exposed to a lot of different types of technologies, if you're into technology, is really critical, because it's changing so fast. Right? So, I mean, there's hundreds of companies like ours out there. Half of them aren't going to get the next round of funding, and they're going to be out of business. So, and the technology is going to shift. So I think, you know, when people come in, you know, out of school, you're always at risk, right? Because they're like, okay, how much training are they going to require? Are they really going to learn quickly? Are they going to be productive? Or the worst thing is, by the time they're productive, they pack up and leave, right? Because that's the millennial problem, right? Oh, if I don't get promoted or become the CEO in 2 years, I got to go get another job, right? Which is real. It's crazy. And I think, you know, it's different. It's just different than when we, you know, got out of school. You know, we could go try a bunch of different things, 3 or 4 or 5 different jobs. You play around with it. I think there's just a lot more pressure on the kids today that, you know, you don't have to know exactly what you want to do. But I think the more you can expose yourself and get exposure to different things now, when you go and you graduate and you're ready to go out into that workforce, you can move much faster, right? It doesn't mean you're going to have the same job from beginning to end, but I think it prepares you better. And I think when we look at hiring folks today, I like to hire folks that how to work hard, that have that kind of blue collar mentality, and that are wicked smart, right? You get that combination, it's really good. If you're just book smart, but that's it, are you going to be can you communicate, right? What are the things that are challenging today, right? It's verbal and written communication skills. For whatever reason, a lot of the incoming workers, they just maybe it's because of the way they're geared and tied to the cell phone and never actually talk. I mean, and I've seen it with my son and daughter. They sit in whether it's at an event, they're texting each other and they're all sitting in the same room. And I'm like, okay, can you just talk to each other, or God forbid call? And of course, when they call, they need money, right? So there's the communication skills, and then I think Mike, you were saying is, how do you know you're going to be able to do that cognitive learning? How do you handle yourself? How do you solve problems, right? And if all you are is like by the book and you've learned that way, and you don't have that broad skill set, when the stuff gets thrown at you, you're not going to be able to handle it. So I think that's, you want to make sure when you come out, you're prepared in those two areas: cognitive thinking skills and learning and ability to learn and adapt, and then, communication, critical. Especially in our space where folks in data and analytics are not your outgoing, marketing folks, right? All right, we got 8 more minutes. Come on, let's go. We got to fill up the time here, guys. Yes, Bob.
You mentioned a couple of times data's a mess and stuff like that. What percentage of effort or time goes into getting the data so you feel you can trust it?
Yeah.
And that probably is pretty challenging thought-wise too.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest challenge that we face in adoption, right? So if we're in data and analytics and predictive and machine learning, all these great things that are available, if you don't have a good data set, then you're predicting, who knows what you're predicting, right? You're shooting in the dark. So the problem is I think people think they have good data until they find out they don't. Does that make sense? So, you think it's all in SAP or Oracle or IBM, or you have this big giant monolithic data systems, but then you find out there's 45 other systems where data is that nobody knew about. Or there's Susie's spreadsheet that's been around. We literally got a transaction at Carter's. You know who Carter's is? Oshkosh, right? They're down in Atlanta. They did revenue forecasting. The woman who has done it is now going out on maternity leave. And they're like, oh my God, what if she don't come back? We have no way of forecasting size, style, color. This lady's been there for that. So, I mean, you think about there's data in these pockets of these big companies that only certain people have. Like, your actuarial guys, I guarantee you, they got that stuff. They're not sharing it with you because that's their job security. So you think you have the data, but you really don't. And that's a big problem. And that's slowing down the adoption, not just of what we're doing, but what everybody's trying to do in, the power of these capabilities we have now. It all starts with having the right data. And if you don't have the right data, then, and then you get frustrated, right? So people make an investment, it don't work. This is too far out in the future. We're not ready for it. So, good question. 4 more minutes, come on, a couple more. Yes, sorry.
How many companies do you think do both data analytics and text data analytics?
How many companies?
Yeah, I know I come from Amerisource and we've tried a consulting company,
Yep.
and it's come to a point where it was okay, we're not really using it anymore because we also need to invest in something like this.
Yes, this is a great question, right? So how does this happen today, right? What happens is companies like Amerisource or whoever don't know, right? So they bring in the consultants, right? Sorry, Mike. They bring in McKinsey or Bain or whoever, or Accenture, Deloitte. By the way, incredibly expensive, right? And what do? They put up a bunch of spreadsheets, or they bring a bunch of binders, and for the first 6 months after they leave, you're so excited, you got all this, and then after they're gone, because it's so expensive you can't keep them around, there's no reusability in this stuff. And oh, by the way, it changes, right? And so That's a big problem. And how do the consultancies now, to become and stay relevant, tie their engagements to something that is more lasting? So what you're seeing McKinsey and Deloitte and Accenture try to do, they're not software companies, but they're either partnering or working with software companies to try to embed their intellectual property. These guys have the smarts. They know what they're doing, right? The problem is they're incredibly expensive and they leave because you can't afford to keep them there. And then the knowledge transfer is hard because it's not like they're bringing you a platform that they leave with you. So we're working very closely with McKinsey, and now they'll never admit it because they don't want to say they're working with anybody because they have to be independent, but which is fine, to build zero-based budgeting, right? So zero-based budgeting has been around for a long time. They've attempted to do this in many companies, but it's just been really hard because when they leave, the people don't know how to do it, right? Because they didn't have a platform like this to be left with them so that they can then take that intellectual property, the benchmarks, the knowledge, by industry, by line of business, by area, that's embedded now in a tool that lives with you, right? And you now can take it and go. That's where I see a big shift because there's a big knowledge gap between the platforms and the intellectual property and data that have to be put in platforms to make them work, right? And it's hopefully the consultancies will figure it out and get their intellectual property into these tools. The problem with that is the business model, right? So how do they make money? They make money by training your guys, making sure you forget so they can come back in next time, right? You know, where if I give it to you and you're actually using it, you might not need me that much. So they're trying to figure out, you know, revenue models that are not just time and material based. Great question. Great question. All right. Yes.
So you went to Villanova CNF. So after 30-some years, if you could set aside some time to take one course at a college level or graduate, what would that course be?
Oh gosh, probably religious studies. No. Yeah. It's funny because I remember, you come to Villanova. I grew up Catholic school all my life, and St. Monica's and Newman, and then I came to Villanova, and I'm like, you're making me take the same classes I've taken for the last 20-something years. No, in all seriousness, I think there's just so much diverse curriculum. And being in a CNF guy, the one class that we tried to take, and it was a disaster here, was physics, right? And they actually had physics for the business major, which is like physics for dummies, right? It was in the auditorium, so there was so many students, and it was just I learned nothing about physics. It was bad. So I was like, okay, the science piece I did miss, and and I think what's great about Villanova is it gives you a broader. I don't think you have the physics for dummies anymore, right?
No. You have a choice.
You can take the physics for dummies. Okay. All right. Not that I would say that that's what it was, but I remember there was whoever it was that lived in, it was a she in there, would use a mirror to blink in and shine on the professor's face every day. And he wasn't really catching it because it was just like it would come in, and we all knew it was happening. So of course we weren't paying attention, and I learned nothing in physics. So that would probably be what I would take a makeup class for that one. All right, last question. One more. No more? That's it? Happy hour? Well, thank you guys so much. This is